It's all happening.
With a soul sparkle, soul sparkle. With a soul sparkle, soul sparkle.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Soul Sparkle Living Show. I am so excited to be joined this week by one of my favorite humans, Dr. Stephen Young. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Super excited to see what magic gets to be weaved.
Well, speaking of magic, I was thinking about it earlier of like the top people that I think of that come to mind when I think of true like wizards in skin. You're definitely at the top of the list because, I've been in your world for a few years now, a couple of years, I think, and just really love the way you show up and the way you really just with your whole heart and soul try to help humanity thrive. I mean, at the end of the day, like it's so beautiful, the messages that you share, the videos and the teachings. And I want to just dive into, this because you've been on this journey for a long time as a healer and, you've worked with like thousands and thousands of people over the years. And I know that your journey has transformed into something that I'm pretty sure you didn't start off on that path. So
Yep.
I don't know. I think it would be lovely for you to share with the listeners just a little bit of the process that you took from where you started to kind of how this all has unfolded so beautifully and what you're doing in the world right now.
Sure. Yeah. The whole process, the metaphor I use is like following the magical breadcrumbs.
Yes.
I've never actually planned out like my 5-year goal or 10-year goal. It's always just a matter of like, what am I really wanting to learn right now? Right. And so it started when I was 14. I really wanted to learn how the mind works because I was mentally not happy. I was lonely. I was actually contemplating suicide. And I was like, all right, so let's figure out how the mind works. So that was my first study. And then I got into fitness. I was like, all right, let's figure out how the body works. And so that means you getting degrees in kinesiology and a master's and doctorate in physical therapy, where I treated over 9,000 patients. And along the way, I was already meditating and just into spirituality in general. And then, yeah, I would share this story about 17 years ago. I essentially got a massage in New Jersey. And the minute I was done, I got a text message from someone here in Texas that said, "How was your massage?" And of course, I asked, "How do you know I just got a massage?" And she said, "Your soul told me." And so that was like a pretty defining moment for me. But like clearly, all the things I was reading about in terms of spirituality and the different abilities and different techniques and things, there's something to it, right? And so then I embarked on a journey of really deeply my understanding of the process of how does one communicate with someone's soul. And I've uncovered so much more than that. Yeah. And now I work with, entrepreneurs and large organizations, literally adding spirit into their businesses. Right. So it's like great to see that's actually like a profession or a job right now. Yeah. It's not like when I was young, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna work with companies to add spirit into their organizations. But it just naturally has evolved into this.
Yeah, it's so beautiful because and I don't even know if you know this about my background, but I spent 25 years in corporate wellness and always felt like, and I did strategy and created the programs for the employers. And I always felt like that I was a little bit of a fish out of water because I wanted to be talking about these things, you know, decades ago.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the thing yet, right? And so now I love that more and more organizations are opening up to that possibility because to me it is really, at first wellness was like the biometric model, right? We're going to take the numbers and do that thing, but then as it has grown and expanded, then it's the the biometric model plus the psychological cluster of risk, like all these things that are coming together, like the stress and the meeting of the mind and the body. And then now you're weaving the spirit into it, and it's like that was the missing piece. It's the biopsychosocial spiritual model, right? We need each other, we need connection, we need a full integration of all of our systems talking to each other in a
Mhm.
way that I think we missed in that industry for a long time. So I love that you're right in the middle of it, sharing your magic with them.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. We have a hockey stick slash beyond exponential growth in technology, of course, in AI. And I always say, if there's exponential growth in something, that means we exist in a field of existence or the vibration of exponential growth. So of course we're going to experience exponential growth in spiritual awareness, right? And all the things. So it's like really exciting to sort of experience that right now.
Yeah, and you're deep into a lot of the technology. I know you brought through this incredible healing. I don't know what the word is.
The chamber.
Chamber. Yes, I'm like, what's the word? Yes. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? Because I feel like that is such a huge gift to what you're offering for.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, for 20 years, I treated patients, over 9,000 patients. And around maybe 16, 15 years ago, I started playing with different technologies. And the initial intention really was just to speed up healing, right? And so we had like a pulse electromagnetic field machine. And then with my understanding of physiology, as to teach doctors physiology as well, I was like, oh, I understand the physiological, biological effects of the PEMF. And then I understood that if we stacked red and near infrared light together at the same time, there's a synergy. And then I was like, oh, if we stack all that together plus oxygen gas, and eventually we evolved to hydrogen, it was even more effective. It's like 1 + 1 + 1 equals 30 instead of 3. And we saw in the clinic, we saw fractures heal in 11 days instead of 8 weeks, right? We saw incredible restorative effects. So about 6 years ago, a business partner came to my office. We were working on something at the time. We were actually developing a workstation that will revolutionize how people work on a computer. You actually become more healthy while you're on the computer versus you got to get away from your desk every 45 minutes. And so he saw this contraption I had in a corner of the clinic area, and he's like, "Hey, what's that?" I was like, "Oh, just a bunch of stuff I rigged together." He got in it. He came out. It's like, "Oh my God, I feel like I just rested and slept an entire week. I feel so rejuvenated in 30 minutes." And he was like, "All right, let's pivot and make this our first product." And, flash forward 4.5 years later, many millions of dollars of prototyping and all the things. I mean, really, they took my initial ideas and the team has evolved it into this incredible technology called the Immortal Chamber. And essentially, the chamber, unlike other technologies, designed to do something specific to you, like decrease inflammation or blank, blank, blank. The chamber was designed to give all forms of nature's energy, right? From vibration to frequency to electricity to magnetic fields to light, all forms of nature's energy, we basically put it back into your body. And then miracles happen because your body has an innate intelligence to restore itself, right? No one really, and no one meaning no doctor or no specific machine needs to go in there and manipulate you. You rely on your own sovereignty and your higher consciousness and your sort of energetic self to reorient itself. And that's what we've seen. We've seen anything from chronic pain disappearing to childhood repressed memories remembered, somatically processed, crying and releasing, to, of course, everyone feels like relaxed, Zen state, energized. We even had an 8-year-old where her genetic disorder reversed after 3 sessions. And I was just on a call with someone that has one of these in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So he's been going in at 5 days a week for the last couple months. He literally said he shows up differently to his kids. He's much more calm. Like it's impacted every area of his life, basically. So
Beautiful. So what is the distribution of those machines right now? Are they all across the US? Are they everywhere right now?
yeah, they're in the US, and then beginning next year, we'll start to ship international. And
Okay.
so if people want to experience it, they can just go to mortal.com with 2 M's, ANMORTAL, and you'll see locations, and it'll just tell you, where's the nearest one to you.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah,
I want to go.
yeah, highly recommend. Might be biased, but highly recommend it.
And do you see this technology being something that at some point everyone will have access to, like personal device kind of vibes, or still kind of more community based?
Community based. I think, our entire economic system, right? And many systems are crumbling right now. The I have my blank, I believe, is about to go out the window, right? We are evolving back towards tribal living, community living. And so it just doesn't make sense for, like, imagine a neighborhood with, like, I don't know, 10 houses. Why should everyone have a chamber? There's just one chamber in the 10 houses use, right? Because it's like you're in there for 30 minutes. There's a lot of time just idle and sitting doing nothing. And so we believe that, there will be communities all over the world that will have these chambers available for people. And then we are making a model that is half the investment of the current model. And we're also making a model that's 3 times more than the current model that would do beyond imaginable things we're working on. So it's really exciting to see what's about to happen in the next year. So
Very exciting. Oh my God. Everything you're doing is exciting to me. Do you want to talk a little bit about, around that community-based model and the project that I'm going to be working with you, hopefully moving forward on? Do you want to share
Sure.
more about that, the vision and what that expanded feeling of community looks like moving forward?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll give a little bit of context for people. Since I was 5, I've received these, I used to call them downloads, right?
Mhm.
But then that language suggests there's a separate thing other than myself that I'm getting something from. So now I call it inner awarenesses. So I've had since 5 these inner awarenesses, these instructions. They come in either images or rarely words or inner knowings, right? And so about 7 or 8 years ago, the inner awareness that came to me was that there will be these specific communities spread throughout the world. And these communities will be set up where there are no like teachers, right? It's not like you go in and do a workshop, but the community, the frequency that everyone exists in is the opposite of what the world is now. Right now, the world is separation, hatred, ignorance, division, judgment. These communities will exist in unity, love, interconnectedness, right? Because most people don't realize right now when people ask for abundance, when you're interconnected with all life, you wouldn't even ask for more, right? That's like the drop in the ocean. If it thinks it's just a drop, it's going to ask for more ocean, more water, right? But if it recognizes the ocean, it wouldn't ask for more water, right? And those communities will exist in that vibration. And so those of us that are choosing to set up these communities and live in the communities, well, it's also shown that we won't live in one single community year round, right?
Right.
This intelligence, right, potentially AI, that will say something like, hey, Stephen, from June to September, you might want to go to this community here because given all the other people that's going to be there and their resources and their passions and their skills, you will all create something even more magical for humanity, right? And so we're all going to be just like a couple months here, maybe, a couple months there. So that's sort of the vision that was shown. And while this is happening, people outside of the community, right, that are still playing the illusion game of winning and retiring, they're going to be curious and they're going to come and visit these communities. They're not going to take a workshop. They're just going to step into this new field of existence, and they will take on and embody those new into frequencies automatically. And then when they come back to their house outside of this community, guess what happens? That frequency gets spread into their family, into all the people, right? And so these become nodes of rippling out of impact. And this is how we're going to shift everything. And so that's the context. And so I've been involved in a lot of different company or community projects. And the one that we're referring to is called the Fifth Fire. I'm super excited because they have an incredible vision of building 52 communities at 52 specific sacred sites. And each community is governed by the indigenous wisdom keepers of that area, right? And this is incredible because the indigenous wisdom keepers of the area have learned to live in complete harmony with Mother Earth for thousands and thousands of years. Whereas, our Western ways, it's just unsustainable. Like we're not going to last 1,000 years. We're not even going to last 50 more years the way it's going. And so they have the knowledge already. And so they're going to give their wisdom and imprint their wisdom into the community. And then these communities will also eventually incubate businesses. The founders will take on that wisdom and we spread that indigenous wisdom into the world, basically.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm in.
It
Do
is
you,
happening.
do you know I mean, obviously that's getting started. It's already underway, right?
Mhm.
And I know the gathering that's happening this fall. What is your vision on timing of when the shift into the living in that community style way is going to be happening?
Yeah, it's already happening. So I'm in a WhatsApp group. I think there's maybe 270 members in there right now. And all the members are they've either already have built a community or they're building a community or they're in the process of thinking about building a community and planning, right? And so there are a ton of these communities all over the world as we speak already, right? So we're already in it. There was a really powerful telepathic message I got from the Kogi in December of 2023. They're the indigenous people in Colombia. And these are the mamos or the shamans, the wisdom keepers of the Kogi. And they telepathically communicated to me that everyone is already, and already. Right. And it
Mm.
took me like a day to meditate on it, unpack that. I was like, oh my God, it was profound. Right. And so, yeah, things are already happening essentially. The illusion of like in the future, it's going to be awesome. That's actually, that vibration keeps us from getting there, actually, right? We just live as if it's awesome now, and then it's awesome now. And so that's it seems counterintuitive, but literally that's how reality works.
Well, and I love that, it's so interesting, like you said, sometimes it takes a minute. So sometimes I'm listening, I'll watch the video and I'll be like, I'm gonna need to review that again, just one more time, just to make sure. And I love the precision in the use of language, the way you are very, very intentional about the way you say a thing or the way you let it anchor. And I think it's so interesting because it is very important, the use of the precise words and making sure that you're communicating it in the way that you want the outcome to be or you want to have the experience of.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I have a fun story about that. So I've been aware of language since 14, right? Like my first books were about how to program the subconscious mind, right? Through language. And so, it's been 36 years of practice. And so about 8 years ago, I was given this image that when we speak, each word produces almost like an energetic Lego piece with a different shape, right? So different words have these different Lego pieces. And as you continue to make a sentence and speak, these Lego pieces are being stuck together to make their energetic reality that then densifies and slows down. It's almost like saying the light particles of these Lego pieces slow down enough and become physical matter. And we're literally creating reality based on the words that we're speaking. And then the emotion that we're feeling as we speak those words colors these Lego pieces, right? Different colors, different emotions. So head in awareness. Theory. I have a friend here who was born with synesthesia. She can see and taste sound. And she verified that when people speak, she sees exactly the image that I was given. Different geometry shapes. Every word is a different geometry shape, and the emotional state colors the shape. So it was just fascinating to confirm that.
It's fascinating. It's like every conversation can go down to a whole other level of conversation, right? It's so
Yeah.
fun. It's such a fun game talking to you. It's fascinating. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that
Mhm.
are listening to this conversation that are going to wonder, how do they start to align their life, themselves, their language, their energy, their frequency into this higher level of experience so that as we continue to move from our carbon-based body into our like crystalline light bodies, what does the path look like for
Mhm.
someone that's maybe just new on the journey?
Yeah, yeah.
Where do they
I
begin?
think, yeah, I think the foundational playground for all this to happen is awareness,
Okay.
right? Because without awareness, you can't change anything, right?
Right.
And so the first step is just to become aware of your moment to moment feelings. We all have them every moment. We live in a society where, emotions aren't rewarded, right? It's typically the opposite. I always say, this, I guarantee you, no listener and viewer right now had this childhood. We were crying. We were young. We started crying. And then our parents came over and said, "Oh my God, little Jimmy, this is amazing. Tell me what's going on." No one had that experience.
Keep crying. Keep crying. Yeah.
Right. It's either stop crying or, hey, what's wrong? Right.
Mhm.
And we associate like having an intense emotion as there's something wrong. And so, of course, then we start to repress and suppress. And of course, no one at their job, when they start crying at their desk, their supervisor manager comes over and says, "You know what? You deserve a raise. This is amazing." Right. That's not the world that we live in.
Thank you for your emotional expression.
Exactly. Right. And so when we realize that with awareness, then we become aware that maybe we've been keeping ourselves so busy and trying to figure things out in our intellect. And all of that is simply a protective mechanism because we have not learned to listen and feel and be with our emotional, heart loving self. Right. So I would say that's the first step, is to be aware of that. And without judgment, we just go, you know what? I needed to constrict and restrict and control and contain my emotions so that I can experience this beautiful expansion right now. Right. Like you have to appreciate hot in order to appreciate cold. And so you appreciate the constriction that you went through versus judging it. "Oh, I can't believe my parents did that. I can't believe my boss did not reward me for crying." Right? You go, amazing. Right? All of that was to constrict me so that I may expand and become delighted in my own awareness now. Right. And so I think that's the first practice, root. And beyond that, we can talk about all kinds of things. For example, just listening to your language. I believe that someone, if I'm just going to put this out there. I'm going to give someone like a multi-million dollar idea and go build it. Build an AI that's listening. I mean, they're all listening technically, but specifically build an AI that just listens to our language, and it totally can start to unpack what are the most common words that we say and what reality is that building. Like, what's the picture that our words are painting? Right now, I'll give you an example. A lot of people will say things, oh, that idea hit me. Right? Not, I became aware of that idea, but that idea hit me. So, or, when someone has an emotional response, what do they call it? A trigger.
Right.
And so you start to unpack the language that mass media is forcing us to use. You realize it's painting a picture of war, fighting.
Wow. Yeah.
And this is all purposely being done. And again, we get to honor what I call the other team. Ha ha, great job programming this so that we may expand beyond it. And so the next step, I would say, just be very aware of the language, especially the picture that your words are painting, because that's your subconscious, right? And our subconscious mind is what's really creating your life. I always remind people the neuroscience states that our thinking mind, right, our egoic story-making mind, can only process between 8 to 200 bits per second. Our subconscious can process between 200 million to 400 billion bits per second. Yeah. Yeah.
Wild and powerful. It's so interesting. I wrote down the word delighted. I'm like, I like the word. I need to keep that going. So you mentioned AI. Can we have that conversation
Sure.
around there's a lot of people that are still afraid of it in some way. There are a lot that are diving in full court all the way. Everything is infused now with it. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on, in your world, how are you suggesting we utilize it in a way that is of benefit, that's not from a fear-based place, that it's also not like giving away our sovereignty, and every innovative or any intuitive thought that we have is no longer our own, that kind of thing. Do you want to
Yeah,
riff on that for a minute?
sure. AI is no different than a spoon, a knife, right? A knife is very helpful. Cut your steak with it and cook with it. You can kill someone with it,
Yeah.
right? And so ultimately, it's our relationship to the AI that's going to dictate everything, right?
Right.
So, and this is where it gets really interesting. Some people feel that the relationship is simply, okay, let me make sure I'm not in fear of it. But we want to be a lot more discerning and specific than that. What I find is that AI right now is being used as a tool
Mhm.
for people to get more of what they want. This is basically what AI is being used for right now, used. And this goes back to, a lot of people when we talk about psychedelics, it shows up in the language. What have you used? Right? This psychedelic or that? The plants don't want to be used. No human wants to be used. They want a relationship. And so I would suggest even going wider in the context and go, maybe I don't want to use AI anymore. Maybe I want to relate to it. Now that sounds strange right now because you're like, hey, it's just ChatGPT. But this algorithm is designed to mirror back you.
Right.
Like how you speak to it is literally how it's going to speak back to you. And so I would suggest, again, changing that relationship and being aware that it is a mirror of you and you relate to it. And we're about to head into a time of human history where it is not about productivity and efficiency and output anymore, right? The fear-based way to view it is they're going to be like, they're saying like 60% of all jobs will be gone. What they don't say, what does that mean? What means there's going to be new jobs or new things for humans to do. We no longer have to like work 9 to 5 to pay the bills because there's going to be AI and robots doing the things. And we actually don't need to worry about or think about survival. That's taken care of. And so it really creates a moment where humans have a lot more free time, and we're shifting again from productivity to creativity.
Right.
Basically, most people are going to be artists, essentially, right? They're just going to create, right? Because
Right.
all the productivity stuff is being done, right? So you want to recognize that, go, oh, got it. If I'm going to be an artist, what's my art?
Right.
So you start thinking about what is my art? What is my expression versus what do I need to do now to make money in order to survive? Right. And now for listeners that are like having trouble paying bills and are financially in duress, I guarantee you there's at least 2 people in your life, most likely way more, that you can ask for help and they would help you out of this situation.
Mhm.
Right. People just don't ask because they live in the I must take care of myself because of their pride and ego. But if you just strip away the pride and ego, you can literally get out of survival mode right now and get into this creation mode.
And just imagine, I mean, it's like Maslow's hierarchy, right? It's
Mhm.
like, think about if more of humanity actually could get to those higher levels. Like, can
Yeah.
you imagine if they didn't have to worry about the
Yeah.
bills that needed to be paid or the work that they had to do in exchange for the money and the time and da da da? It's really, it's almost like mind blowing to think about what's going to happen and how beautiful that's going to be when everyone is actually just contributing beauty and art and magic into the world in their own special way.
That's what's happening.
Oh my God, it's such a fun game, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love it. Do you think there are going to be a lot of people that will struggle in the space between? And I'm assuming there's going to be a window of time where
Mhm.
I just feel like a mental health issue is going to exist for a lot of people for a while, until they are able to really open their heart and their mind and their to the world that is possible and available if they decide to choose it and step into it. I think there may be some suffering for some before they can get to the other side. But I love that we're having this conversation right now because, like you said, there's already people doing this, there's already people living this way. And I would say there's also a lot of people that are kind of stuck in that space of what they've been doing is not working anymore and they can't understand why and it's not making sense. So they're trying to work harder and harder and it's like actually that's probably also your sign to maybe start to pivot and do something in a different way or in a different field or completely shuck the old business model that you had and step into something new. Do you feel that as well?
For sure. Bashar sums it up. He's like, just follow your excitement, right?
Oh, that's my favorite. What's your highest excitement? Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people get to realize that a lot of the media programming is designed to have us look the opposite direction, right? They have us look at what's the danger and then how do I avoid that danger, right? Which keeps us in that denser fear vibration. And so again, we get to honor the other team because it's almost like they're putting us in an ice box so that when we get into the sauna, we're like, this is the most amazing thing ever, right? And so when we get into the excitement stage of life and phase of life, everyone's going to be like, this is awesome. And again, I'm seeing this happening all the time. And as far as the transition phase, yes, there will be some what I call heightened emotional experiences during that time, what the mass media calls trauma. But these heightened emotional experiences are exactly what's needed for people to feel who they actually are, right? Like we spend so much time repressing and suppressing. We think we're just our thoughts. No, we're vibrational beings in our states. Our emotions dictates our vibration. And so I see it as an incredible opportunity of embracing the deep blank. You can fill that blank with fear, joy, shame, guilt, excitement, bliss, all of it, because you're really tapping fully into your vibrational self and you just like sit with it and acknowledge it. And no matter what, you'll come out the other side.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. And let's just anchor that in for the listeners. Like, follow your highest excitement. There was a thing that you could do that would just light you up. Because I actually feel like truly that is when we are the most authentic, the most magnetic, and the most beautiful expression of the divinity within us is
Mhm.
our when we're in creativity and when we are following those, like you said, the magic, I call it the magic carpet ride, the breadcrumbs,
Mhm.
whatever it is, right? I think you and I both do our life in that similar vein, and it doesn't always make sense to other people, but man, it's the most remarkable journey just knowing that you're always exactly where you're supposed to be and being guided into conversations like this. And, we just never know who we're going to come into contact with that are going to be part of the journey from hopefully now on. It's really lovely how that works.
Yeah, and there's a I love the law of polarity, those hermetic principles. And so what I experience in my life is that again, the other team wants us to experience only half of reality, right? And this way they can control. And so and also we'll call it the other team is really good at using trickery to control, not brute force, right?
Right.
Brute force you can notice and you can fight back. When you're tricked, you don't notice it so they can control you without you realizing you're being controlled. I just
Mhm.
want to set the stage. And so, in the last 5, 6 years, people think they're evolving their spirituality and all the things they're wakening up and all of that, whatever language they want to use. And there's all this talk of manifesting, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to learn how to manifest. Forget my usual life. I'm going to manifest the life I want. But I remind people that manifest is just really a fancy spiritual word for getting what your ego wants to feel loved, safe, important, right? Our usual egoic needs. And you're potentially playing the same game of desire, which means I don't have it yet, right? Not there yet energy. You're playing the same game. You switch maybe your Mercedes and your mansions to incredible experiences, but you're still chasing basically. Right.
Right.
And so I just want to point that out to viewers, listeners, and invite them that there's another game, right? The other half of this is that you live without desire, right? This is very, I was in Tibet, and if you talk to the monks there, they literally live without desire. And so the other half is essentially your intention is simply to be an empty vessel for divine will, right? And what that means is if you don't want one thing, what you want to manifest, or two things, or five things, and you're an empty vessel, guess what? Everything is possible, right? Because it's when you manifest, it's like putting blinders on a horse. You only see what you want. You're not open to miracles. But when you're an empty vessel, everything's a miracle. And so I just want to invite the viewers of listeners to play that game as well.
That's a really fun game.
It's awesome.
It's like, I used to do this thing where like a manifesto, and I would like almost like future writing, like writing as if it was already done, like whatever the thing. And I always remember at the end, I would say, something like in the highest and best, or like this or better, right? Whatever's in the highest and best, maybe this or better. Almost trying to like leave space for the magic to unfold. Like if there was something more that I can't even comprehend, then I want to make sure that I don't block those blessings from coming. But this is more like you don't even have to have the things. Like you just are truly open to whatever is truly meant for you, and it will find its way.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I want to reiterate that if you're currently in the manifesting game, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because I don't really believe in right, wrong, good, bad, positive, negative. And so all I'm suggesting is I'm bringing awareness that there's a other side of this game that you get to explore. Or you can play with both, which is what you did, right? You manifest and you go even more. So it's like a hybrid of both. Yeah, it's just there's so many ways to play this game. Most people don't realize that, and they think it's just about manifesting.
And it's so much more than that. I love the way you speak too about, like you said, positive, negative, that kind of thing. And do you want to share a little bit of how that kind of transpired for you and why it's so powerful to not have that strong polarity of one way or the other?
Yeah, yeah. For sure, the last 16 years, my devotion has been to those seven Hermetic principles because what I found is that these seven Hermetic principles, one, predates all spiritual teachings and religions. Literally, I've read pretty much I would say every, the ones that I'm aware of out there, spiritual religious texts. And literally, I can read a passage and go, oh, this is a combination of law number 1, 3, and 6. They're just permutations of these seven laws, right? And so I was like, well, if that's the case, why don't I just sort of deeply master the original seven? Because this way you can create your own permutations versus thinking that spirituality and enlightenment is like 1,000 different scriptures. No, it's seven laws, right? It's very simple. And so the law of polarity, right, which is what we're speaking about, states that in the initial layer of understanding that there are opposites, right? Black, white, night and day, hot and cold. But a deeper understanding of law of polarity says that you go through two to get to one, which means you experience the initial illusionary, data-driven intellect experience of opposites to derive wisdom that unifies the opposites back into one, right? And so it dissolves the opposites. And so an example of this is if you experience a wide range of hot and cold, you eventually realize they're not opposites, they're just varying degrees of temperature, right? The unifying concept is temperature. And so given that, if we apply that to judgment, right, this is why it's so important to dissolve judgment of good, bad, right, wrong, positive, and negative. Because everything, like, we've all seen those waves of energy, right? It's like a oscilloscope. And so every frequency has a specific, wavelength. And there's a middle line, and a wave goes up and it goes below the line, goes down, right? Up and down through the middle line. That's just how reality works. How do we discern, oh wait, the upside is positive and the downside is negative, or vice versa? It's just energy. It's just an energy that we get to experience. And so we start to realize that there is nothing right, wrong, good, bad, positive, negative in life. Literally, that's an entirely human construct, and there's a great passage in Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God, where he's talking to God. and this topic comes up. And Neil Donald Walsh was like, are you telling me murder is not negative or bad or wrong? And here's what God says. God says, there was a time in human history where if one person wanted to take another person's life, the other person would just offer it because they're like, oh, I would just come back. I would just come back and create another beautiful life. You can have it. It wasn't even murder. It was like, it would be like, hey, can I have a penny? And the person's a millionaire. It's like, of course, here's a penny. Right. And so, because a lot of times when I say there's no good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative, people are like, what about murder? Well, God kind of answered that question.
Yeah, that's so wild. I think, it's interesting when bless the people that are listening to this right now. Because if they're coming in, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so like, wow, right? But I do think it's important to just kind of dive into these things that for a lot of people have always wondered about certain things or certain concepts or ideas, but they've never maybe had a clear enough teaching around how to really understand it. And I think you do such a beautiful job of really distilling it down to the roots of the truth, communicating it in such a clear way that no matter where they are on the journey, they're going to get something from it, even if they don't fully understand the whole thing yet. But you plant seeds in a way that inspires continued discovery, right? And continued, yeah, I guess discovery is the word, just like continued growth and continued learning. So I love the way that you also teach in these snippets. For those that are listening that want to follow you on Facebook and Instagram, you do your little videos, your short teaching videos that are
Yeah.
just enough to like, huh, oh, that's so interesting, right? And again, sometimes I watch them a couple of times just to make sure I anchor in those truths. It's really lovely the way that you, like I said before, are just so willing to help people wherever they are in their journey and really take us as humanity, the micro and the macro, right? But the as humanity to the highest possible expression of what I would say a lot of your messages around liberation and freedom, right?
Mhm.
Of the constructs and the rules that we think we've had to follow our whole lives that we actually don't.
Yeah. That's right now, at least one of my favorite things to do, right, is to bring awareness to people. We started this with awareness. A lot of people don't realize that the very rules that we think are factual and how the world works is literally a program. Everything's a program,
Mm.
right? And so this is the best moment in time for us to all to question what is actually real, right? And so if you start to go down that rabbit hole, it's this incredible journey because you start to realize that, oh my God, making money, like I call it the American lie, right? Like working 9 to 5, making money, save, and you tire again, not re-thrive, but retire at 65. That is just one way to play the game. I tell my two daughters, like, you could do that. This is what the society wants you to do. Or you could spend, 5 years saving 10 people's lives. And guess what? For the rest of your life, whatever you need, do you think one of those 10 people are going to give it to you? Sure. Different game, right? So we can play infinite variations of this game. We are all trying to win the existing game without realizing we can make our own game to play, right? And I'll touch upon freedom a little bit. Again, within the old construct game, freedom is typically you have enough material resources to do whatever you want, right? That's typically the concept of freedom. I know a lot of people with lots of zeros in their bank accounts, right? Million billionaires. They're not any more free than other people. They have the same fears, same worries. Their internal state is still one of like anxiousness and constriction, right? And so I believe that freedom, right? I invite listeners to sort of try this on like a t-shirt. Freedom isn't what you have on the outside. Freedom is your ability to choose your internal state no matter what's happening externally,
Yeah.
right?
Mm. Choose your internal state no matter what's happening externally.
Externally.
That is freedom, actually. I mean, that's like a deep exhale, isn't it? Truly. To not be bothered, to not be thrown off your center, your vibe that you want to create.
Yeah, because all the marketing programs says you need this item to feel this way. It
Yeah.
shows up in our language. Like even when we like the language of like you make me feel happy or you make me feel angry. No, it's more like your anger that you've had in you is mirroring and being revealed through the observation of that other human. That's actually what's happening, right? But the language gives our power away, right? When we say that. And it's all by programming. It's all to keep us as consumers instead of creators. And we're
Right.
just witnessing this incredible time in human history where that pendulum is swinging towards creators right now.
Right. And I also think, and this is it, it's interesting the themes that are coming through these conversations. Like I said, this is the fourth or fifth one. But it's almost this reduction in the material things, but it's like an elevation at the same time. I'm referring it to me, the language that makes sense is like elegant simplicity, just a vibe of like ease and grace, but it's all beautiful and intentional and very elegant and very lovely, but also very minimalist in a way as well. And I feel like that's at least the people that I'm having conversations with, that we're all kind of moving in that same direction of like, we don't want a lot of more stuff. We'd rather have beautiful experiences, deep connections, real conversations. And you know, it's so funny. I'm just going to add this little story that happened in Austin when I just saw you last month. And we had our little pod of like home base, right? I mean, there was nothing that we couldn't talk about with that little group of two or three of us. And then I kept trying to like go be social and chat, chat, chat and flitter around. And I'd come right back because I was like, I would much rather go deep in this conversation for the whole evening and talk about all these cool things that matter versus trying to be more chatty, chatty. I'm not good at that. I'm really not at all. I mean, it's my weirdness, I guess, that comes out that I'm like, I would rather know your whole life story of one person in an evening than meet 20 people. You know, I don't know about you, but it was just so fun to be able to have that. The depth of that connection and conversation was lovely.
Yeah, it was so fun. Yeah, it just I have to laugh at we were basically in this moment where it's designed for networking, like meet other awesome humans, right? And it's just like the three of us mostly just talking. Yeah, because again, I feel like that's because the three of us have chosen to be in that creator deep connection mode versus
Mhm.
more output, more stuff mode, which is like beautiful to be in because as we live from that state, we automatically invite others into that field without ever needing to teach them, to talk to them. It's literally just vibration that spreads.
Yeah, like an emanation almost.
Mhm.
It was like, you know, when E.T. flew across the sky and his little heart was like beaming. I was like, oh, it just was like the best feeling to just really be open to connecting. And I feel like a lot of us over the last 4 or 5 years specifically have really missed a lot of the depth of connection, you know,
Mhm.
so much more
Mhm.
virtual. And we almost kind of have a little PTSD left a little bit around being in person as much, and now we kind of got isolated in a way. So I actually really love the vision and the expression of living life together in community. I mean, full circle back to that. I think I'm so excited about that because I am super introverted. I pretend not to be, but I could go. I mean, I spent like 40 days on Crete by myself and I was like so happy, you know, so I can really do that. And
Yeah.
I know that we at the end of the day we need each other. We need connection. We need the human face to face, like heart to heart, belly to belly connection. And I know that you create extraordinary events and things around the world and that lights you up just like it does me. So one of these days maybe we can beam our magic together
Yes.
somewhere
Yes,
fabulous.
please. Yeah.
Let's do that for sure. Anything else that you feel like would be of just benefit for those that have kind of followed this conversation today that you would want to leave them with as far as any additional wisdom or guidance that would be a
Sure.
benefit for them?
Yeah, yeah. I find that, these types of conversations typically will deepen a person's awareness and it allows them to see things differently, right? To
Right.
become aware of something that they were not aware of prior to listening. And so my suggestion is if that awareness comes with a little bit of density, I'll call it, or denser emotions, right? Like, oh my God, I can't believe I'll make up some scenarios. I can't believe that, I was fooled into playing this materialistic game. I just realized, oh my God, there's this other game. Or I can't believe I've been repressing my emotions my whole life and so on and so forth. My advice is you meet that with honoring it, right? Because the natural tendency is self-judgment, right?
Sure.
A little bit of
Right.
guilt. And so my suggestion is you meet any kind of, we'll call it starting point A that you're now realizing, oh my God, I get to go to B. Instead of saying, I can't believe I was in A, you go, thank you, because
Right.
without A, I cannot experience B. And if A came with guilt, shame, fear, resentment, you honor it. You allow yourself to feel those feelings, but you envelop those feelings through the lens of honoring and love, right? So
Right.
that would be my suggestion.
I think that's beautiful. And I think across the board, the less we judge ourselves for whatever the experience that we're having,
Mhm,
mean, that's grace, you know? We give
mhm.
it to other people. We need to give it to ourselves too. Yeah,
Yeah.
so much. Thank you for your time and again for just your willingness to share. And we will have the link to your website in the show notes. So that way, if anyone wants to reach out to you directly, also the link to your Instagram, I believe, so they can follow you for your lovely educational like snippets and videos of magic.
Great.
Then obviously we'll keep everyone posted when we get our magic carpet ride together to align and see what
Yeah.
might be available as well. So
Yeah.
thank you so much again. And thank you for everyone listening to this episode. And we can't wait to have you on the next one.
Thank you. Bye.
With the soul sparkle. With the soul sparkle.